there's one more property that we can add to the box shadow, and it's called the spread property. So we're going to do it on this aside section. So scroll down till you find the aside, and there it is. So we're going to add a box shadow here, and let's go ahead and play with this a little bit. So box shadow, we want to put the color is RGB, and this isn't one, it's 51, 91, oh, commas, 91, 51 is the color we want. And then let's just play with it for a little while. So let's say that we wanted it to be 10 pixels to the right and 10 pixels down. And then and let's not give it much of a spread right now, so we can just look and see what happens. So let's just see what that looks like to begin with. So this is a box shadow, and this is one. All right, so here's what we did. We said offset it to the right and offset it to the down. And so we got both of those 10 pixel offsets, and then we just got a little bit of blur, just a 2 pixel blur, so not much of a blur, but kind of a big offset. And then we can go ahead and make the size. And so here's the spread, and this says make it bigger. So let's say it's 20 pixels, and this will make it bigger than the element itself. So when we refresh, notice that it made it bigger. So it says the shadow is 20 pixels bigger. Did we say 20? Yeah. So 20 pixels wider and 20 pixels taller. So we've got this kind of offset, right? But we first we offset it, and then we made it bigger. We can also make it smaller by using a negative value, so where the spread is smaller. And there, when it's smaller, we can't see it. In fact, because it's enough smaller that it's past the offset. So let's make it a little bit smaller, but not smaller than the offset itself, which is 10 pixels. And then we see it just a little bit. So another thing we do is we can make the offset bigger and still make this smaller. Let's see if we can get it, what happens there. So there it offsets, but notice how it's not as tall and it's not as wide. All right, so that's so that gives us that spread value. So what we want to really do here, we're going to do something interesting. What happens if we do 0 offset? So let's go ahead and do a 0 offset with just a very little bit of blur and make it smaller. So we have 0 offset, and it's smaller, we can't see it. So now what about if we make it bigger? So we don't want to offset X or Y, but we want it to be bigger. And there, we get it goes all around because it just, okay, there's no offset, but it's bigger. So we end up getting a shadow that goes all around. And this is what we're looking for. And we're going to keep it 0 pixels, 0 pixels. But now we want it to be very blurred. So let's use a blur value of 20, and then we'll just use a spread of 10 pixels. So now we're going to get this same kind of idea. We're not going to offset it, we're going to blur it, and we're going to increase the size so it's bigger. And there we get kind of this halo effect of the shadow all the way around.